From your experience, basically, what kind of skills are these companies looking for in their candidates when you were interviewing with them?
Okay, so I think primarily they look for your communication. Like if whatever idea you have in your mind, are you able to convey it across?
Okay.
And I think second most important thing is being able to think on the spot.
How do you negotiate your expected salary if it isn't mentioned in the JD?
I don't have experience in negotiating my salary because everything was well defined for the campus hiring process.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have had some experience negotiating my stipend. So I used to just
So, welcome to everyone, and let's start the session we are here for today. And I would like to especially thank Kanha and Aashika who agreed to join us for this quick rapid fire thing that we have with them. So, first things first, just tell me about your journey, quickly, and why you got interested in product management. If you guys could just throw some light there.
Yeah, so I basically didn't really know that product management as a realm actually existed. I graduated college last year, and I was sort of exploring a couple of career paths, and that's when I stumbled upon NextLeap on LinkedIn. So yeah, basically NextLeap sort of introduced me to product management. When I started exploring what it is about, it was really interesting. So I just have like 3 months of internship experience. I worked as a software developer right after college.
All right.
And yeah, like after that, this is my first proper job.
Great. Kana, you?
yeah, I'm placed right now as an EPM at CoinSwitch. I started exploring product management since my first year in college. Concept of building something new was quite new to me back then. I did not fully understand how companies work, how a product is built. And once I joined the entrepreneurship cell, started exploring, and I really liked the idea that despite the profits, despite the money that an entrepreneur makes, the founding idea of working on a product or launching a product is to actually solve user problems, that you're creating some value in the society. So that was one of the value systems I really liked about working on products, working on new products. And I eventually started exploring this field. I did a couple of internships in college. In my third year, I did two product management internships as well. And yeah, that's about it. I During my campus placements, I got placed as an APM.
Great, Kanha. Thank you so much for sharing. And how many interviews did you guys have to give, to crack a product role?
So for me, I think like it was not about how many I gave. Like I think everything happened parallelly for me. Like I was giving interviews with 4 companies, a couple of them through the NextLeap portal, and a couple of them that I just looked up through LinkedIn and other job portals.
All right. And how
Yeah.
many interviews, Ashika? Did you give?
Maybe 15 plus easily.
Kana, what about you?
For me, things were pretty linear. I was doing my internship last semester. I was interning at Flipkart, and during that internship period itself, our campus placements had started. So the first company that came for the APM role was Grow, wherein I gave 2 rounds of interviews, but I did not make it through. The next company that came for placements was CoinSwitch, where I gave 3 rounds of interview and I was eventually hired. So all in all, I appeared for 2 companies and I gave a total of 5 interviews.
Cool. Yeah. So it varies. You
Yeah.
have to give a lot of interviews, I think, to crack the one job. So from your experience, basically, what kind of skills are these companies looking for in their candidates when you were interviewing with them?
Okay, so I think primarily they look for your communication. Like if whatever idea you have in your mind, are you able to convey it across? And I think second most important thing is being able to think on the spot. Like most of the rounds that interviews requires you to sort of be able to come up with solutions and think about things, like in that very moment. So they don't really expect you to have like a right or a wrong answer or something. It's just they want to see how structured your approach is. So I think what I did when it came to preparation was, for every kind of round that we typically have for product interviews, I set out like a framework. I watched a lot of videos and I had like a framework that I could use no matter what the question was. So every time a question was thrown at me, I would know that okay, this belongs to this kind of round, and I should follow this structure. So, and telling the interviewer what structure you're going to follow also really helps. So yeah, I think structured thinking and being able to communicate your ideas in a good fashion, and yeah, of course, all the fundamentals that you should be knowing about the product space. Yeah.
Yeah, so I basically divided the whole skill thing into two buckets. One was hard skills, the other one was soft skills. So in hard skills, what I had learned that even though they won't actively ask you questions on those skills in your interviews, but it is always a plus point to have those on your resume. One was Excel, obviously advanced Excel, Figma to showcase Figma, Canva, that you have some sort of design sense. If you're good with SQL, that's a plus point on your resume. They won't actively ask you questions on Excel or SQL. The flow usually goes to the soft skill side, what Ashika said, how you're communicating, how structured you are with your thinking, how patient you are. I mean, towards the end of the interview, or mostly in the last round, they do a lot of grilling as well. So you simply have to maintain your composure. You have to be calm. You have to be structured. You need to be able to handle that stress. So that is something also that comes into play. But then again, if you are appearing for roles like product analyst or any other, which is not a core associate product manager role, some of my friends have been asked questions on SQL as well as Excel. So it is always good to have a balance of both. Although for core APM roles or core product manager roles, they mostly bank towards the soft skill side, your communication, your problem solving, your structural thinking.
So,
Yeah.
what were the different rounds of interviews that you guys gave while you were basically interviewing for these companies? If you guys can just shed some light there as well.
Yeah. So for I'll just talk about Keka. So for Keka, what happened was the first round was a take-home case study. So they typically give you some time, like some companies give you around like a week's time or some 2 to 3 days. But for me, it was just about 24 hours. So it was just one day's time, and it was a product design question. So they asked me to prepare like a simple, like 3 to 5 slides deck on the question. And yeah, like they had not mentioned anything regarding what should be in the deck. They just told that we want you to assume whatever is necessary and like come up with with an interesting solution. So that was the first round I had. Post which, like once I got through that round, the second round was with a senior product manager at the company. So the second round was mostly it was a mix of everything, to be honest. Like they're not told me beforehand that hey, this is going to be the round that you'll have. It was more like a surprise to me during the interview that oh, this is the round I'm getting asked for. So yeah, so the second round is mostly around the common question that gets asked everywhere, and I think NextLeap has really prepared us for this, which is what is your favorite product and why. I think with all the 4 to 5 companies I've interviewed with, this is something that's been constant. Like, what's your favorite product and why? And for which I had also like had a structure in mind, and I'd already prepared an answer and kept. Of course, when you deliver it, you shouldn't sound like you've by hearted it or something. But yeah, like talk about that, and they sort of dig into it, like why it's your favorite product, and what are the reasons, and if you were a PM there, how would you improve it. So that's one thing that they ask, like how would you improve your own favorite product. And after that, there were a couple of questions regarding the deck I'd made in the first round, like the case study round. There were some questions. He dug deep into why I'd done certain things and what was my thought process behind it. And post that, there was one product improvement question that was asked, which was improve Google Maps. So it started off very basic, but then since I started answering, it went a little deeper, and he gave me a lot of scenarios, and he asked me what would you do if this was the scenario and things like that. And yeah, apart from that, there were some questions around metrics as well. Like he had asked me a couple of questions on the AA triple R framework, and if I had to use that for the question that was given to me, how would I come up with metrics. And yeah, mostly around improvement, and the metrics part was my second round. And yeah, post that, the third round was again with another senior product manager, which was mostly around RCA and guesstimates. So with RCA, like, there was a question around Swiggy, like if Swiggy's orders are down by 9%, like find out why. So that was the root cause analysis question. And for guesstimates, I believe the question was, find the number of users who use WhatsApp web per day to send at least one message. So that was another question. And with both these things, with the root cause analysis, of course, they have a specific answer they require you to sort of land on. But with guesstimates, I think you can never come up with the right figure. Like you cannot be very accurate with guesstimates. And the same happened with me as well. My number was a little off, but the product manager was like, I like the approach that you followed. So I think the guesstimate part is really about how you break it down, how granular you can get, and how accurate your approach is, like the way you break it down. So that was mostly around my second round, and they also repeated the question of what is your favorite product and why, but just that this time it was what are your top two favorite apps. So, and based on that, again, there were some improvement questions. If you were a PM, how would you improve, and things like that. And post that, yeah, so there were also a couple of behavioral questions that I was asked in this round. And it was very basic ones, like tell me about yourself, and tell me something you worked on in your previous company, things like that. And yeah, so once I got through this round, the last round was around, it was with a group product manager in the company. So it was fully behavioral, and they just test your soft skills, and they basically drilled me for an hour. And yeah, so it was just questions around, scenario based questions. If you were in a situation like this, what would you do? And since I'd mentioned a couple of leadership roles in my resume, it went really deep into that, like what were the insights or the key takeaways you had from these roles. Of course, in every interview, I was definitely asked about the NextLeap graduation project. So if you are putting that up on your portfolio, please know what you've really done. They sort of asked details from each and every slide, like why I'd done certain things a certain way, and how did I come up with the numbers, the user research part, things like that. They pretty much ended the interview asking what expectations I have from the company, and yeah, pretty much that. And if I had any questions for them, and yeah, the interview ended with that fourth round. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much. Prachi just has an additional question here that if when they were asking you regarding your favorite product, was it like from the user friendly perspective or was it from like a business side of
So, I mean, it's not about whether the app is user friendly, I guess. Like, it's just that if you find a product interesting, why is it? And through that, they indirectly sort of try to understand how well you analyze a product. Like, if something is your favorite product, then why is it your favorite product? And based on the way you answer, they dig deeper into. So, like, I told that, my favorite product is Script which is a reading app. I read books on it. So the interviewer also happened to read a lot of books on Kindle. So we had a very interesting conversation around, the innovativeness, the design, the usability, the utility of the features, things like that. So I think it depends on the way you structure your answer. Like they sort of like probe deeper into the responses that you give. So yeah, I think the way I answered it was based on why I think the product is great. Yeah.
Kana, over to you.
Thank you, Kancha.
Yes.
So yeah, for me, I'll start with the interview process of Grow. That was the first company I appeared for. So it started similarly what Ashika just said. We received a problem statement and we were asked to make a 4-page document on that problem statement. Just for some context, the problem statement was just pick any financial product and identify a problem and solve that problem. We were given like a week or so to prepare that document. And yeah, the flow was again the similar product design flow. You understand the market, then you understand the problem, you validate the problem, then you ideate on solutions, prioritize them, make a wireframe. list down pitfalls, mitigations, matrices, all of those things. And post that, we were shortlisted for the interview process. During the interview process, I appeared for 2 rounds. During my first round, usually the first half of the interview, like 20 minutes, 25 minutes, or 30 minutes or so, they get to know you better. They ask questions about why you want to become a product manager, why you want to join that particular company, what is the worst thing about product management, what is the best thing about product management, things like that. They try dive deeper on your resume as well, just try to understand the work that you have done previously. And during my first round, I was asked a question. If I recall correctly, I was supposed to make a short video feature on WhatsApp. That was a product design question. And during my second round at Grow, I mean, it was all over the place, honestly, that round. It started off with a root cause analysis that the number of searches for Netflix has decreased. And in between, I had not even finished that question, but the interviewer asked me to make like a video content, uh, feature for Grow in between that question. And post that, we had some discussion on matrices as well. He asked me questions about tech as well, and then he gave me another root cause analysis question that like people are not receiving water in their households in Bangalore. So it was kind of like all over the place. It started off with with a RCA, then it went to a product design question, then it became a metric question, then it became a system design question, then I was back to a root cause analysis question. So yeah, that was the two processes. For CoinSwitch, the process was similar. We were given a problem statement. We had 3 days to make a deck on that, a similar product design deck. And during my interview process, during my first round, again, the first half of the interview was just some behavioral questions: why I want to become a product manager, why do I want to join CoinSwitch, and just a discussion on my resume. And then I was asked a root cause analysis question. And coincidentally, I had a similar question as well. The number of orders for Swiggy have decreased by 50 or 40%. And then I was asked a question on goals and matrices as well. What is the goal of launching the like feature on Instagram? And what matrices would Instagram be tracking for the like feature to identify that? And my next round was a product design question where I was asked to make an experience at Uber for children. And my third round was again a product design question where I was asked to make an application for amusement park. And yeah, this was mostly about it. I appeared for 5 interviews in total, and in 4 of those interviews, I was asked a product design question. And here and there were some matrices question, some root cause analysis question, something on some discussion on tech and things like that. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that is very sounds very extensive and all like there is no like one kind of a interview. Usually companies, if they're going ahead with RCA, they just do RCA in one interview
Yeah.
and they would want to check your other skills. But this was like, I think they wanted to check all your skills in one interview round, Kana. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's how it works, and nobody tells you what kind of a interview it's going to be. They just like on the go decide, okay, this is what I'm going to do today with this candidate.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned take home assignments. So I know Kanha shed some light on what his assignment was all about. Aashika, did you do a couple of take home assignments?
Yeah. So with Keka, the one that I got was the product design question. It was design a video streaming feature for WhatsApp. That was the question I got. And I also did give another, take home case study with the company where the question was, like it was more like a strategy question. So it's like if we all know about ONDC, right? So they wanted me to come up with some sort of integration of ONDC and some ride hailing app. So I chose ONDC and Rapido. So if they both collaborated, with the intercity bus segment, basically around that, like I came up with some solutions around that. And, I did that because Rapido has already entered metro in Chennai through ONDC. And there's a lot of apps like that coming up, like even in Bangalore, we have Namma Yatri. So yeah, this was something very interesting. I chose the ONDC and Rapido. That was again, it was a very intensive, deck. It was almost 10 slides. I usually don't think they'll ask you for 10 slides, but in this company, they'd ask me for 10 slides. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And how did you guys like what kind of resources did you use? And did you guys, I know Ashika, because since she's from a recent cohort, did a lot of peer interviews. I know that. But Kana, did you also do peer interviews? And how did you prepare for your interviews? Like, just want,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. While I was doing NextLeap, I had joined, if I recall, like in last August or something, if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And while I was doing NextLeap, I used to follow the mentor sessions just to get a hang of how the interview process is going to look like. And I followed the graduation project as well, which helped me understand how the first take submission, that is the take home assignment, is going to look like. And post that, I just went everywhere. And if I had a framework from the mentor session for product design question, I went to YouTube and I watched a couple of videos of Exponent and PM School and all of those things. And I just tried to understand how they are solving that question. I read a few blogs as well, and I talked to a couple of seniors as well. And based on all of these things, I kind of just like collated a 5 or 6 step process of my own that I was comfortable with while solving that particular type of question. And I did this for all type of question, all 5, 6, 7 types of questions that are used.
Okay.
And I did a lot of peer interviews as well. I used to schedule them on the NextLeap portal as well. And since I was still in college, so I had a peer group within college as well. And we used to actually, I did a lot of interviews, and I was interning. I was in Bangalore, and I used to go to my friend's apartment, and we used to sit all night long doing asking questions to each other. We used to order KFC and Burger King and everything. We used to make coffee, and we used to sit all night long on the weekend just asking questions to each other.
That's very nice. I mean, that's a lot of effort that you put in. That's great. Awesome. And it has paid off, of course. Ashika, what about you?
Yeah, so with me, I think I primarily started off preparing using the NextLeap's material. Like I read them in and out, including the Discord channel that you get added to once you become a top fellow. I think like I also like would do a couple of interviews with a couple of peers on the group. We would pick a few questions from the Discord channel and solve them together, share our screens and solve them. And apart from that, of course, the monthly peer-to-peer interviews that happen on NextLeap's portal. So I would take up all, like it's basically a mandate to take up 3, but I would sometimes sit for like 4 or 5, practice through the peer-to-peer ones. And mostly Exponent and PM School, these are some of the best channels I've come across. Like it's very structured. It's they solve different kinds of questions, and it's all like questions that you can possibly expect in product interviews, like similar ones. So I would at least watch like 4 to 5 videos every day of different rounds, make notes. And I think that really helped me, build the whole structured thinking, skill. But yeah, primarily these things.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much. How do you negotiate your expected salary if it isn't mentioned in the JD?
Yeah, so I mean, I think I would stick to what Arindam said, which is if you don't know how to negotiate, then don't negotiate. And I think if you really feel like it's not matching your pay, then I ideally think it should be towards the end of the interview, and don't have it more than like 2 minutes. Like don't prolong the conversation for more than 2 minutes, because then when they leave the call, they leave with the impression that you're really focused on the pay and not on the job. So in the situations where I really had to negotiate, I would like obviously like politely ask them if the salary is negotiable, and they will definitely tell you like if they are willing to negotiate on it. But if I would also suggest that don't start by like telling your expectations. See if the company tells you what they have in mind. Like try and find out from them if they have a budget in mind, like what they're planning to offer. They'll usually probably give you a range, and based on that, you can choose to, or like choose to negotiate or not negotiate. If it fits well for you, then, and if you don't know how to negotiate, then don't negotiate. Yeah.
I mean, I don't have experience in negotiating my salary because everything was well defined for the campus hiring process.
Yeah.
But yeah, I have had some experience negotiating my stipend. So what I used to do, what Ashika said, I used to just, they used to ask me what is my expected salary. I used to ask them what is your budget for this role.
Okay.
And yeah, they will probably give you a range, and you just try to fight for the upper barrier that they give. Yeah, that is what I used to follow.
All right. Okay. Nice. And while you were actually preparing for these interviews, I'm sure this was not a cakewalk. It doesn't sound like that. You must be like, made aware of what kind of mistakes you were doing earlier. And then you maybe were like aware of, okay, this is like a kind of a mistake I'm doing and I shouldn't be doing this.
Right. So I think this was something one of the hiring managers from NextLeap pointed out during one of those interviews. So, which is that when you really know in depth about a topic that is given to you in an interview, there is always a chance that you can be biased. Like when it comes to laying down the pain points, or the solutioning, there tends to be this situation that you feel like in the head you're right, but you're really not. You've probably not gone deeper into the actual pain points of the user segment. So I kept repeatedly doing that, and he pointed out to me that since you really know about this topic, you're being very biased. So think of it in a perspective where you're a layman, you don't even know what this is, then you shouldn't be speaking this way. So I think that's one thing I kept in mind throughout the rest of the interviews that came up, which is to consciously not have that bias. And second, I think being like whenever you're about to start answering in an interview, don't go on a monologue. Like always lay down the structure to the interviewer, that if supposing it's a RCA question, you tell them that, okay, so this is the structure I'm going to follow. I'll first dig into the internal reasons, the external reasons, then I'll look into some system issues, and then we'll probably just brainstorm on what the answer, I mean, the root cause could be. So when you lay that to them upfront, I feel like they'll be able to follow you better through the interview. They'll catch your points better. So these are two things that I think I learned from the interviews I gave. Yeah.
Yeah, for me, I would say I recall my first mock interview that I gave with a friend, and it was really, really terrible. And honestly, I could not communicate well. The whole framework was out of place. I was like blindly following the framework. So I would say it starts off small. Just get used, getting used to that environment that you're giving an interview. Just getting confident with that communication process. That is the first step. And then I would say I used to solve very basic or generic questions that are asked like everywhere, like Zomato ka 10% order like add to cart is decrease or something like that. Those generic questions, and I used to follow the framework one by one. And once I had gotten used to the framework, that is when I moved to unconventional questions. And I would say one of the hard part is, you tend to stick a lot to the framework, and that is not something what the interviewers expect out of you. That if you are too stuck to the framework, the interviewers are smart enough to identify that, and they'll start asking you unconventional questions in between the case. And if you keep going back to the framework, it's going to show you'll eventually start giving answers which are redundant and which don't make sense. So I would say communication was a huge problem for me to begin with. I was too stuck on the framework. It took me a while to actually let go of the framework and start building a thought process of my own, and coming up with solutions or problems or ideating or coming up with answers at that exact moment was a huge challenge for me. Once an interview actually cross questions you, and if you don't have that habit of being in that element, you'll start to panic, and then you'll start giving any random answers, and that is going to show that you have started panicking. So
Yeah.
one of the things I developed that if I was asked a question I was not confident, I would just say, may I take 30 seconds to ideate on this? And usually the interviews are polite enough to give you those 30 seconds. So these are some of the things I had to develop during my interview preparation.
Very nice, Kanha. Actually, I agree with that tip of taking some time and taking some time to answer them. Because when you are not taking time, you're like kind of doing a lot, and then you're like nervous, and then they pick up on that nervousness.
Yeah.
And it's not very good feeling to have when you are like giving an interview and you really want to like crack the job and the interview as well. So
I mean, it's one of the worst feelings that you've completed your 60-70% of the interview and you know you are messed up and you have to just go through that 30% knowing that you are messed up. Right?
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a terrible feeling.
Yeah. And also a follow-up question. There are a lot of common questions that keep getting asked in every question, and one in every interview. And one question I remember is basically, please tell me something about yourself. Every interviewer basically wants to know, okay, their icebreaker question is for you is this only.
So, for the tell me about yourself, like you said, it kind of varies from a company to another company. I didn't modify it much, like maybe based on the culture of the company and what they really look for in employees, maybe a few points here and there. But I think one thing I did was being very honest and telling something that's not in your resume. Like when the recruiter, I mean the person who's interviewing you, they'll probably have the resume opened right in front of them and they can see like every minute detail. So you don't have to really list out to them that these are my skills, I'm good at this, and things like that. Maybe just give them a very brief overview of your past experience, where you've worked, and a couple of things that you feel like if you mentioned would really stand out. Like for me, I really wanted to mention about the leadership roles I'd taken up in college because that's something I couldn't elaborately talk about in my resume. So and also, I made sure to keep it under 2 minutes, give a couple of pauses, and not make it sound like, it's a script in my head and I'm reading it out. So, yeah, I think that and being very honest, it should be more like a conversation rather than just, going on a monologue, like I said. And yeah, pretty much that, being very honest about the kind of person that you are. And of course, a little bit of the points that you feel are relevant to the company. Yeah.
Yeah, so even I had a similar approach. I had prepared a list of questions, and I used to just, I mean, it was a weird situation. I was living in a PG in Bangalore, and I actually used to go to a friend's apartment to give interviews because the internet connectivity at my PG was terrible. And I used to go to the roof of that apartment, and I used to just imagine myself in situation that I've been asked this question, introduce yourself, and I used to answer that sitting all alone. And that is one process I've that I follow. Just sitting alone is imagining yourself in that situation, that you have been asked this question and how will you answer that. And once you do this 5 or 6 times, you just kind of get used to it. And there are some generic questions that are highly likely going to be asked to you in an interview. One is obviously introduce yourself, tell me something interesting about you, tell me one project that you worked on that you're really proud of. Why do you want to become a product manager? Why do you want to join this particular company? What is the best thing about product management? The worst thing about product management? How do you communicate product strategy? Difference in project management, product management, questions like that. And you should obviously know ins and out of your resume. Don't put something on your resume that you won't be able to justify or explain. Just as Ashika said, be honest out there. If you're making things up and there is a cross question coming your way, you're going to mess it up. That is one thing. And I obviously do your research about the company, just memorize data points on that, just find things, just to keep the conversation going, just find things that your interviews is going to find interesting if you talk about that. And some other things you can pre-prepare, obviously keep a favorite product in handy, just two digital product, two favorite digital products, two favorite physical products, the worst product, and just keep those things in handy. You need not make things up on the spot for these types of questions. So these are some things you can obviously pre-prepare and memorize. But obviously in the interview it has to be conversational. It should not like you memorize something and you're speaking it in a monologue. It has to be conversational while you are talking about that.
I totally agree. Yeah, that's like something that is very useful for you to always be like this prepared. इतना prepared तो हो जाना चाहिए. उसके बाद then जो भी googly आएगी interview में वो तो अब है. You have to
Yeah.
manage that on the spot. Also, I wanted to ask you about how long does like every interview process take? How do you keep in touch with the recruiter? Like if you want a follow up and be like, okay, now when is the next interview? And if you haven't heard from the company, what were your strategies to go about that as well?
I'll actually talk about how it is for internships first. So if you're applying for internships, I feel like the response time is pretty quick because I feel like there might not be that many applicants, in comparison to like full-time jobs. So when I'd applied to internships, I pretty much heard back within a week, like with the resume shortlisting and everything. And with like full-time jobs, with NextLeap, what I saw was for the companies that applied through NextLeap, the response time was really quick. Like in fact, like if I'd applied tonight, I got a call the very next morning and things like that. So yeah, it depends on like from where you're applying. Like some portals are rarely checked. Like if you go to Wellfound and some other portals, maybe they don't really check very often. You can see there that the recruiter was active a week ago or 2 weeks ago. You can see those notifications. And like for me with LinkedIn, like since I'd applied through LinkedIn, the entire interview process went on for about a month. I had one interview scheduled every week. The first couple of rounds happened within like 1.5 weeks, but post that it took some time, maybe because there were too many applicants and they needed some time to decide on how to go about it. But yeah, I think the duration of interviews is typically around 1 hour. It's very rare that it's gone more than an hour for me, like maybe just one or two which went on for an hour and a half. But it's always almost like 1 hour. And if it's probably your last round, it'll typically last around 40 to 50 minutes, not more than that, I guess. And yeah, so that's the experience I had.
Yeah, so for the first part of your question, how long does a typical interview last? Yeah, I agree with Aashika. It's usually 45 to 50 minutes. But obviously it depends on the interviewer. Usually, people, if the interviewer is a member of the senior leadership and they see that you are a person who has some potential, they might extend that interview. Like for me, the second round was for 2 hours. And yeah, so it totally depends on the interview. But on a standard note, from what I've observed around me as well as according to my personal experience, the standard is obviously 50 minutes, 45 minutes, 1 hour. And may you recall the second part of your question?
Yeah, I was saying how long like does the entire process take? Like
Okay, yeah. For the entire process, I mean, it depends on the company. Like for some companies, they will like take a pool of 20, 30 people and they will conduct all the interviews in one day or maybe on a Sunday or something on a rolling basis. Like if you've qualified the first round, you'll move on to the second, otherwise you're out of the process. And for me, like some companies, like for CoinSwitch, the process was very well spread out. Like they were very interviewee friendly. They used to communicate well. They used to inform things beforehand. They used to schedule meets beforehand. And regarding keeping in touch with the interviewer and how to get feedback, I used to connect with them on LinkedIn. I just used to drop a message. Hey, I think one of the best ways to get feedback is at the end of the interview. Usually, the interviewer is going to ask you, "Do you have any questions?" So after you have asked a couple of questions about the company and about their personal experience, you can just drop in a question. Hey, what is your feedback about the interview? Mostly the interviewer will share that. Otherwise, you can just drop them a text on LinkedIn or email them or find their phone number. For me, I did not resort to that because for the process of CoinSwitch, the process was very well spread out, very well structured, very well communicated. So I did not feel the need to actually do something like this.
Okay. All right. And like you guys didn't mention, but how did you guys go about staying in touch with the HR, or they were only very prompt? in like staying in
Yeah,
touch?
for me, the HR themselves were very prompt, so I did not need to actually actively approach them.
Okay, great. Okay. And sometimes, yes, companies do take time to get back to you. So it is very polite to actually just like send in a mail to the HR or the person who's coordinating with you. Like wait for like if you're, for example, your interviews happen today, then just wait for like 2 days. And then on third day, you can like politely just ask them, hey, do you have any update for to share with me? And most probably they will share the update with you. It's not like they wouldn't. So yeah, I mean, that's a decent time to wait. We have a couple of questions in the chat actually. Why don't we take that up? Prashant has this question of what's the average CTC for APM roles based on the current market situation? You guys have applied, so can you tell me, Ashika?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it really depends on what kind of company it is. Like I've seen some startups paying just around 5 to 8 lakhs for APM roles, versus some other companies like pretty well established ones. It can go anywhere up to like 14 LPA, I feel. But yeah, I can just give a range. Maybe anything between 12 to 16 is what I think. Of course, it depends on the kind of experience you have. If you're a fresher, I don't know if you can expect like a very high package. It does vary, but yeah, typically anywhere between 12 to 16 is what the industry standards are.
Rana, do you have a take on it or
Yeah, I agree with Ashika. For the top companies, the package is mostly around, I would say, 20 LPA, 25 LPA for some of the top companies, at least for APM roles. And the industry standard is obviously somewhere between 10 to 15 or something like that. But obviously, the market conditions right now are not so favorable. So there are companies who are hiring for APM roles even at 8 LPA, even at 7 LPA.
yeah. Okay. All right. Cool. Mahesh has this question. Does a PM role have urgency of hiring? Do they wait for 3 month notice period? Yes, Mahesh. Usually companies wait for your notice period. If they can't wait, they tend to buy it out. So you're in a win-win situation anyway, so it's fine. Bharat has a question. Being a top fellow, what will we get with additional to? Okay, Bharat, I'll answer that question for you. Don't worry. And Ashika's replied that. Okay, any technical questions? Okay, did you guys get asked any technical questions? I think what Ujjwal means here is like SQL and all those questions. Did you guys get asked those kind of questions in your interviews?
Yeah, so like if you're applying for a product analyst question, like make sure to go through SQL. I was asked a couple of SQL questions for product analyst roles, but I don't think for APMs I've really experienced SQL questions. It's very rare. Like they don't really ask you unless the job demands it or something. But yeah, like for analyst roles, they pretty much always ask you SQL, and I just went through the basics. I tried a couple of exercises on the SQL playground on the NextLeap course, and also I watched some YouTube videos and yeah, just basics.
Okay, all right. Kana, you want to take it up?
Yeah, I have a similar answer. For product analyst roles, they might ask you questions on SQL Excel.
Okay.
For APM roles, usually they won't ask you that much of tech. Even system design will be asked at a very superficial level, at least for APM roles. But obviously, once you go for proper product manager roles with a couple of years of experience, they tend to ask system design questions as well. But recently, the trend has been that companies have even stopped asking system design questions for APM roles. They don't dive that deep into system design questions. They might ask you at a superficial level, but not that deep.
Got it. Yeah. And okay, Shushmita has a question. Did NextLeap syllabus help you that you
Yeah,
guys?
definitely. I think the reason I basically did not have prior product experience, and for me to be able to crack a product role was like way beyond my dream, I guess. I don't know, but really, like next Leap syllabus is very structured in my opinion. Like you're pretty much you learn everything you need to survive in a job. Like I have started working now, and I realized that everything I learned in NextLeap is actually helping me right now. So yes, the NextLeap syllabus is it really helps you before the job and during the job.
Great. Kana, would you like to say something?
Yeah. Honestly, I have a similar answer again. But yeah,
Yeah.
the NextLeap syllabus itself is very well structured. I mean, if you follow that for the 9 weeks, I think you're good to go regarding your preparation. Then it all boils down to how much effort you have put in personally. But the syllabus itself is something that you can follow blindly to actually, get a hang of, and just to build a routine as to what you want to prepare and when you want to prepare.
Got it. Okay. Awesome. I think we've covered most of your questions, and you guys have also been answering in the chat, which is great. Um, okay, give me 1 minute. Mm, I think Prince had a question of, is your salary, does your CTC depend on the last round CTC? Yes, Prince, that's the norm of the industry, like whichever job you're applying for. Very rarely will companies give you like an exponential hike on your current CTC, but usually it's taken on the last round CTC only. Yeah, I think
Uh, yeah, hi. Can I ask a question by unmuting myself? Is it fine?
yeah, sure, Prince, go ahead.
Yeah. So, see, why I asked this question is that because I am not, see, I have a total 7 years of experience, like working experience, and now I'm planning to, make a transition into this product management field. But the experience which I have is into, like around 5 years of experience into sales. But since past last 2 years, I've been working with a US based, like digital construction company. And I was working with a sales team, but my role was, like helping the sales team to increase the sales, but without directly, like I was not directly involved in the sales. So I was kind of managing a product itself that was a training program, okay, for digital construction people like, architects, mechanical engineers, and civil engineers. So, as like the two people, I think it's Kana and the second one, they said that they did some internships before, directly getting into this role of product manager. So, my question is that कि क्या मुझे भी पहले लाइक अब मेरे पास 7 साल का एक्सपीरियंस है पूरा इंडस्ट्री के अंदर, तो पहले मुझे प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट लाइक एपीएम के लिए या फिर पीएम रोल्स के लिए कुछ इंटर्नशिप्स करनी पड़ेंगी, या फिर मुझे डायरेक्टली प्रोडक्ट मैनेजमेंट का रोल मिल जाएगा, और जो मेरा सैलरी पैकेज होगा वो मेरे लास्ट सीटीसी के हिसाब से दिया जाएगा? बिकॉज एज शी सेड कि 8 से 9 लाख का बजट होता है, बट अगर किसी का पैकेज उससे ज्यादा का हो, बिकॉज इस फील्ड के लिए मे बी आई कैन बी कंसिडर्ड एज अ फ्रेशर, तो बट मेरा जो लास्ट पैकेज है वो उससे ज्यादा है, तो इसीलिए मैंने ये क्वेश्चन पूछा, लाइक हाँ.
Okay, so basically, let me answer and then Ashika and Kana
या प्लीज
also go ahead. But Prince, the thing is, आपको कोई internship करने की जरूरत नहीं है, even if you don't have experience in the product space. I feel like the skills matter more than anything else. Like if you have the required skills that are required to do the particular job that the company has for you to do, right? They
Okay.
will not shy away in like saying कि अच्छा इनके पास product experience नहीं है. उसकी वजह से I have seen a lot of people who were not in the product space get into the product space, okay? And they did not do any internships. Basically, they took the course very seriously, yes.
Okay.
And they tried and honed their skills, right? Just like these two have, Kanha and Aashika. And yeah, and they broke into the product space. For the CTC, it's a very it's a call that the company can take, right? If there is a particular set budget, like they said, try and find out what that budget is, right? And also, even the company knows that you are trying to break into a product role. You are
Okay.
not from the product space as such, right? So they
Okay.
would know कि ठीक है, okay, this is what your current CTC is, for example, and this is what we've earmarked for the job. Sometimes how well you do in the interview also tells them कि ठीक है, I think this is what we can offer. And if you're not okay with it, you can tell them, okay, why not? Why don't you like offer me itna and I'll join? Those kind of conversations you can always have.
Okay, understood. And one more question, like as Kana said, like the curriculum of NextLeap is quite structured. So a person, जिसको knowledge नहीं है, he can also break into PM. But again, मेरे पास कोई tech knowledge नहीं है. Like as he said, I think किसी ने question भी पूछा था, any technical question asked in the interview. सो वो टेक्निकल जैसे कि ये एसक्यूएल वगैरह हो गया, आई डोंट नो दैट. सो will I be able to understand whatever being taught in the curriculum of NextLeap?
Yeah, I think, but practice करनी पड़ती है. Like, just like we used to be in college, I feel like, why don't you guys answer this for him? Actually?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Yeah,
me.
so like SQL, even I didn't know much. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Kanha.
No,
Yeah.
no, no, Ashika, please. You can. Yeah.
No, the whole, I mean, the voice was breaking. I couldn't hear you. Yeah. So, like for me personally, I didn't really know much of SQL. It was a subject in college, but like something I overlooked on, like never really paid attention. But yeah, I feel like whatever questions they ask you is going to be on a very basic level. It's not like advanced SQL or anything. All I had to do was watch a couple of videos on YouTube and try out some exercises online. There are a bunch of websites where you can actually practice these queries. I think that should really help. And besides this, there's nothing really that they ask you for like technical questions. It's mostly around SQL. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Kanha, you can go ahead if you have.
Yeah. Like, if you're applying for product analyst roles in particular, that is when you actually have to spend a lot of time on SQL. Otherwise, if you're applying for core product manager or associate product manager roles, you can rely on NextLeap. Like, one of the best sessions I had in NextLeap were the 2 sessions on tech actually. So for system design, you can be really confident once you attend those classes at NextLeap. And mostly for the APM or the product manager role, if you are, comfortable with system design or you have basic understanding of tech. I mean, if you want to learn the basics, you can just go through a book. There's a book called Tech Simplified. You can go through that and you can just follow NextLeap and you'll be fairly comfortable with general know-how of tech. Apart from that, if you want to learn SQL, you can just go and watch any random playlist, like a 2 or 3 hour video on YouTube, and then just go make a ID or hacker rank or code chef or anything and just start, you know, solving questions. And as Ashika said, you don't need a lot of knowledge of SQL. I mean, as a product manager, even as a product analyst, even in interviews, they won't ask you that much of tech. And if you want to start off with the basics, I think this could be your roadmap. Just go through Tech Simplified, follow NextLeap, and just explore things on YouTube. Yeah.
Cool.
Okay, thank you so much, guys. And I'm so sorry. Last question from both of you. As you guys are in top fellow, so one more question. Like, uh, while pursuing this next leap course, so you guys were working, like kahin job kar rahe the, like you were, dedicated towards learning this PM thing.
They both mentioned actually that they were in college. Like Kanha was in college,
Acha.
Ashika was completing college, and she was doing an internship, and that's when she signed up for the fellowship. This is already.
Okay, so like how much time, like kitna time dena padega to become a master of this, like, or to lowest, like in this next leap course?
I feel like someone asked कि milestones करने का और LIP करने का फायदा क्या होता है. I'll tell you milestones करने का और LIP करने का फायदा क्या होता है. एक तो I think your skills get honed and जो हम आपको milestones देते हैं करने के लिए every week that you guys submit, it's basically an amalgamation of the project that you have to do in 20 days. Here you do it in 2 months. You will like make different kind of milestones and that builds your portfolio as well. So yes, koi like if you don't want to do them and you want to just like crack the graduation project, it becomes difficult because we do keep looking at data and like 80% of people who actually submit their milestones have a better chance of becoming top fellows and acing like whatever they do, right? Because you've already have practice. And LIPs, of course, help in building your portfolio better. That's what, yeah, I think.
Thank you so much, Kana and Ashika, and thank you, Team Next Leap. Thank you so much for your time.
Okay, thank you guys. I think we'll call it a day. Thank you so much. It's already 9 p.m. Thank you for joining in, everyone. Thank you, Kanha and Aashika, for taking this time out. I think this session was really fruitful for a lot of us on the call. So yeah, thank you so much for joining in.